Good evening and welcome to our latest hustings. It's rather odd to be here on a Tuesday evening, but what have we got this evening, Simon?
Oh, sorry, bit of sound there. So this evening we have our third hustings. So we're taking a trip to Baffins, a highly contested ward this year. We're getting into. So we are joined by three of the candidates standing in Baffins this year. And those are Jeanette Smith, who's standing as an independent, Jason Christopher, who's standing for the Labour Party, and Charlie Douglas, who's standing for the Conservatives. So welcome all three candidates. Don't frighten me by now not being able to speak or something and we can't hear you. You can.
Good evening.
Right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I can't believe they were colluding against us. That was very, very poor. So I think it's also I think it's also important, as just before we start the hustings, to just reinforce the fact that we do invite every candidate that we know to be standing in the ward. We approach them either through their central party or directly through social media. So everyone that is standing in Baffins has been invited to come onto the show. So thank you to the three of you that have been able to come and join us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I will briefly explain the rules for anybody that's watching or listening for the first time. If you're following the live show on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, you can make comments on Facebook and YouTube and follow along. But if you're watching it back, obviously the recorded live stream, obviously we won't see those. But also you'll be able to listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So whichever your chosen provider is, that'll be available later this evening. But also don't forget that on Thursday, the 28th, we have our Nelson hustings as well. So a bit about Baffins then. So and the rules. Oh, sorry, a bit of background noise on the mic there. So each of our candidates will have a 2-minute opening speech. We have a submitted opening speech and closing speech from Paul Oakley-Cleef, who's the Portsmouth Independence candidate. So we submitted that. So I will read that out on his behalf. But all of the questions will be put to all of the candidates that are present. Each of them have 2 minutes to answer each question. And they also have an opportunity to, once every candidate that's here has answered each question, they have an opportunity for a 60-second rebuttal, should they wish to do so. We'll work our way through the questions, offering them to each of the candidates in a jumbled up order so that there's not always the same person getting to answer first or last. And then at the end, we'll have our closing speeches. So that's how the format runs. And just a little bit about Baffins. I'm sure, hopefully, the voters that are listening, I'm sure they already know what Baffins is like. But our little introduction of the ward is that so Baffins, bordered by Cobham to the north, Fratton to the west, and Milton to the south. Baffins is given predominantly to housing, but with very, very large recreational areas in the form of Milton Common, Great Saltons, and of course Baffins Pond. It also contains Portsmouth College. And over the last 3 years, the number of registered electors has actually stayed roughly static in this ward, although turnout has dropped by just over 100 votes from between 2018 and 2021. Since 2016, it's returned a Liberal Democrat candidate, but elected a Conservative in 2015 and a UKIP councillor in 2014. Just to reiterate what Ian was saying, we did attempt to reach out to Bob Simmons, the Green candidate, and Abdul Qadir, the Lib Dem candidate, either directly, if we could find contact details for them, or through their respective parties, but unfortunately did not receive a reply. So we have the three lovely candidates here this evening. That's our introduction to Baffins.
Perfect. So let us go into opening addresses, and to open first, Simon on behalf of Paul.
Okay, so this is me reading Paul Oakley-Cleef's statement, and I'm going to put that up on the screen as well at the same time. So Where did it go? Right, I beg your pardon. So, I am Paul Oakley-Cleef. I apologise for my absence in tonight's hustings, and I wish all of the candidates taking part my best wishes, and I look forward to catching up later to hopefully listen to a healthy debate. I'm a local man. I live in Folkestone Road in the heart of Baffins. I've always been keen on politics, especially on a local level, and voted my entire life. In the recent years, I've become highly displeased with the national parties and kept finding myself politically homeless. Like many others, I have always managed to keep track of local politics, and although the local parties appear on the surface to be very active, I have personally never had my door knocked by a councillor or a candidate in all the time that I've lived here. I am not overly keen in comparing what I hope to achieve to do with other candidates in the husting today. I am sure we all have strong qualities about us and all have our weaknesses. But what I do want to say is that I truly believe if I was elected as a local councillor, that I would be an ideal councillor for the people of Baffins and Moorings Way. I have absolutely no national agenda and will be solely focused on local issues. Firstly, mainly due to my disability of losing my sight, I have no active work. This means that if elected as the local councillor, I will be able to focus on being a councillor and the local community on a full-time basis. I will have absolutely no ambitions to hold any additional roles within the council and want to ensure all my time and energy is spent looking after the local residents and their needs. I would look at holding at least 2 local surgeries a month across the ward for people to visit me with issues. I plan to guarantee a response to all inquiries within 24 hours of receiving them, and I aim to be seen actively engaging within the local community. I've decided to stand for the Portsmouth Independent Party, as I was attracted to the fact we can be truly independent and vote on motions and topics completely freely without being forced to vote in a particular way. That means I can act in the best interest of Baffins and Moorings Way all the time. I thank you for listening and best of luck to the other candidates involved. I hope everyone can keep the campaigning and the debate as friendly and positive as possible. And it's Paul Oakley-Cleef of the Portsmouth Independent Party.
So thank you, Simon, on behalf of Paul. And then can I invite Charlie to make your opening address, please?
Good evening. Thank you for having me on. I'm Charlie Douglas. I am your Conservative candidate for Baffins. I am currently studying politics at the University of Portsmouth and have been involved in politics, well, in Pompey politics, since I was 16 years old when I met a campaigner on the street. Ever since then, I've been learning, listening to residents, how their lives are and what's going on the streets. And over time, I decided I'd like to stand, I'd like to put my views forward and represent those people that really reach out to me and where I can make a difference. I don't know what more to say. I play for Portsmouth Rugby Club, born and bred in Portsmouth, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. So can I invite Jason for you to make your opening address, please?
Yes, thank you, Ian. Thank you, Simon, for having me on. I'm Jason Christopher. I'm the Labour Party candidate for Baffins Ward. I'm 54 years old, self-employed theatre technician and designer, also an artist, and top up my income by doing supporting artists, TV and film work. I have a wife, Sarah, who works in education for Portsmouth City Council, and a son studying a degree in music technology at Southbank University in London. We moved to Baffins in 2013, just due to my wife's work, and our son went to Priory School. I worked briefly at Portsmouth City Council and a waste management firm at North Harbour before setting up my own, which ran for 3 years before I set up as a sole trader. Before I moved to London in 2011, lived in Gloucestershire and worked for the Gloucestershire Local Authority. I love living in Baffins, and to be honest, I now can't see myself living anywhere else. I'm extremely proud to be the Labour candidate for the ward, and if elected, to represent everybody from all aspects of life to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And finally, and I think, Jeanette, it's we hadn't acknowledged it yet, and apologies for that, that you are the current sitting councillor for Baffins Ward. So I'd like to invite you to make your opening address, please.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. And thank you for the invite. It's a privilege to be here. I've been your local councillor in the Baffins since 2018, and I have lived in the ward for over 20 years. I was elected as a Liberal Democrat, but I became independent candidate a year later. Why? Well, promises were broken and there was a lack of vision for Portsmouth and Baffin's ward. I believe local councillors need to focus on their ward. Baffin's has been underfunded for years under various administrations. As an independent councillor, my record in the last 3 years shows how influential I have been without the need for voting on party lines. My highlights, there's been many, but the main one is the afternoon tea I organised for the 75th anniversary of the VE Day, which, although a year late because of COVID, was a large part of the Baffin's Pond Association Fun Day success last year. It was wonderful to see local people enjoying themselves after quite a torrid time and hearing their tales of what happened in the war. As an independent, I have influenced the budget for Portsmouth City Council with 65k additional funding to support Family Hub, 87k for domestic violence support, 76k to support community poverty strategies, and 40k for a new countryside officer post to serve in the Baffin and Milton wards. Working with this community has been a privilege, and I hope once again that I can ask people for their vote to continue that work in Baffin's ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. And Simon.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. And switch back to the all people view. Right, okay. So thank you very much, candidate. So on to the first question. So why are you standing in Baffin's? And that question goes first, please, to Jeanette.
Yes, thank you. As I said in my opening sort of statement, I've lived in the ward for over 20 years. In fact, I moved to Portsmouth. I was born in Bradford when I was 3 years old, actually on World Cup final day, believe it or not. And I lived in a council accommodation at Furs Lane. So I'm an old Miltonian, really. Went to school at Great Saltons, and I used to walk across Milton Common to come to Great Saltons secondary school, and I loved the area. I love everything about it. I love the people in it, and it was enough to always said that I always wanted to live in Baffin's. And I was lucky enough, and I say lucky, to be able to move to Baffin's and settle here. I wouldn't stand for anywhere else, basically. I love the area, love the community, and the jewel in the crown for Baffin's is the open space. I joke with fellow councillors that I think it's the best ward in Portsmouth, and I maintain that. I still think it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the same question, please, to Charlie.
So I grew up on Folkestone Road. I spent a lot of my early years of my life in Baffin's ward. It's the area where I have most of my childhood memories, and I love the green spaces, and the local community is fantastic around there. I would like to preserve the sense of community and make it a space that families can grow and families in the future can grow. And hopefully it'll be one place where I can potentially have a family and, yeah, lead my life. So that's the main reason. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And lastly then to James.
Thank you, Simon. I'm standing as the Labour Party candidate for Baffin's ward. Well, first and foremost, I'm a Baffin's resident. I know that doesn't necessarily have to be the case for every candidate that stands in every ward, but I am a Baffin's resident, and I face the same issues as everyone else does. I care passionately about the ward in which I live, and I want to represent the people who live in the ward and be their voice, a strong voice for them. I want to find ways to reduce the rising antisocial behaviour in the ward, as I want our streets to be safe. One has the right to feel safe at all times, whether on our streets or in their homes. I want to explore possible solutions to ease parking problems for residents, which is a problem that never goes away. I want to look at ways to reduce littering, all the normal problems that every ward seems to have. I want to support local businesses and engage with local business community projects in Portsmouth. I want to explore ways to invest in our youth population to help them prosper and develop their talents and skills. And I support the cleaner air in our city as kind of been overlooked a little bit for the north of Portsmouth. I want to engage in many discussions on many topics to improve our ward, and I'll full and proper consultation with the people of Portsmouth. Most of all, I want to help people wherever I can, whenever I can, as far as I can. And I lose on Thursday the 5th. I've heard many times on the doorstep that change is needed. It is. That trust is needed. It is. And a vote for me is a vote for change, real positive change, and also a vote for trust. And if you elect me as your Labour councillor on Thursday the 5th of May, I'll be a strong voice on the council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. And so our next question just asks, and Jason, you're first up for this one. It is to really.
Just wanted to check in. Sorry, did anybody else want to rebut on that one at all? I wouldn't have thought so on that one, but just to check. Thank you. Sorry, Ian. Go on.
No worries. So I guess in the question, and there are many issues in every ward. What do you see as being the key issues in Baffins? And Jason, can I start with yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Well, key issues. I mean, obviously, Baffins ward does have similar issues to other wards, but mainly in Baffins, we're talking about antisocial behaviour, dog mess, parking is a big one, Moneyfields, St James's Hospital, and the prison developments, environmental issues such as pollution, clean air, and the sea defences. Also, the continuing fight against Aquin, which, although has been defeated for now, hasn't disappeared completely. And I'm just ugly head again. So those for me are the main issues in Baffins.
Perfect, thank you, Jason. And Jeanette, can I put the same question to yourself?
Yeah, my policies and priorities actually sort of match what I think are the key issues for Baffins. The first one is economy. You know, promote Baffins, North Milton, and South Copner, because sometimes we forget those two small areas in Baffins. And attract new investment, resulting in more economic growth and local jobs. Health and well-being is number 2. Support those who are socially isolated within our community and continue with rebuilding from the pandemic. 3, community safety. Continue to work with the police, city council, wardens to ensure the reduction of crime and antisocial behaviour. Improve public footpaths, whether they're on the open spaces or along our busiest roads. Planning. Keep green fields and open spaces green and encourage only necessary development on brownfield sites. And I would add to that one with planning, we need more social housing. Even in Baffins, we need more social housing. Road safety is number 5. Push for the addressing of traffic calming and road repairs, including requesting double yellow lines and redundant bus stops review to free parking spaces in the ward. And finally, but not least, number 6, which is sport and leisure. Encourage the development of sport facilities and new activities for all ages across Baffins, North Milton and South Copner.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeanette. And lastly, Charlie, what do you see as the key issues?
So from conversations I've had with residents at the door and even through the residents survey, we found that there are 4 key issues that people are really concerned about. Dog fouling, of course, antisocial behaviour, parking, which is an issue, unfortunately, it's very difficult to tackle. And the big one at the moment is the cost of living, unfortunately. The national government is putting some policies in place and they're doing what they can locally. I'd like to say a thanks to Penny Mordaunt for the Baffins pantry and all the pantries that are going out across the city, which from a small cost of £4, you can have a weekly shop, and it's estimated that it will cut £700 off a yearly shop. In that, I'll also give credit where credit's due, and I'd like to thank Jeanette for not playing party politics and allowing it to go through. So thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. So would anybody like to use their 1-minute rebuttal?
That's a no.
In which case, I'll hand over to Simon.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So our next question. The Eastern Road transects the ward and is one of only 3 routes onto and off of the island. And it's a key part of the city's cycling infrastructure towards Havant if you're heading eastwards. What should be done to improve the cycle infrastructure along this route without choking off the flow of cars? And I'd like to ask that question first, please, to Charlie.
The Eastern Road is being widened to allow safer cycling provisions. The work is currently taking place, and then the next phase, I understand, is reclaiming the space alongside Harbourside to widen the existing pavement. The first phase of the widening scheme of the Eastern Road has already started as well. This is hugely welcome from us and residents, as it doesn't affect the road traffic lanes, as Lib Dems proposed at one point to close the southbound lanes to create a giant cycle lane, which we campaigned against. The new scheme is much better, and I think it's widely welcome, and I know it is because of residents' response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlie. And next, if I'd like to ask that same question to Jeanette, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's always a difficult one to try and sort of balance, cycle infrastructure with choking off cars. And Eastern Road is a typical example of that, really. In most parts, the Eastern Road is wide enough, and Charlie's right. They have started to sort of widen by sort of Harbourside to allow a cycle lane and pedestrian lane. But I think what happened is we missed a trick, really, because what we don't do at the council is two things. We don't go to the community, cycling community, and ask them what they need and how to keep them safe. And the second one is we have councillors who think they know what the solutions are. And actually the professional people in the council, the officers in the council, who are trained professional people, can come up with ideas that sometimes are stifled. And I think we need to sort of stop believing that as councillors we now have all the answers. And then when we can have those solutions from officers, it's then going to a wider consultation and making sure that everybody has a say in that. And Eastern Road debacle was probably one of the reasons why it failed, is because it was councillors saying we know best, and we don't. So I welcome the widening of Eastern Road, but I would like to see more infrastructure for cycling and more listening to their views on safety, to make sure that the whole of the city has a cycle infrastructure that is fit for purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. And Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I totally agree with both what Charlie and Jeanette have said in comments. It's a tricky one. It's a real tricky one. I don't think there's one solution that fits all, and I think that's a mistake that the council often get a one size fits all solution for everything. Certainly, parts of Eastern Road do have paths and walkways that could have a wide or two-way cycle path. And as Charlie said, the current scheme is certainly better than the previous suggested one. And there's also a sizable less than a cycle highway along a good stretch of the left-hand side of Eastern Road as you head out on the college side, on the golf course side, where there's just not even currently a footpath or a cycle. You could also argue that reducing the speed limit could make it safer for cyclists, but that may have an adverse effect on the flow of traffic, which is already a problem at peak. But more investment in cycle infrastructure, as Jeanette said, with proper research and to encourage less vehicle use, environment and ease congestion is probably the way forward, I would say.
Thank you, Jason. And would anybody like to take advantage of a rebuttal on that question, please? No? Okay, over to you, Ian.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. So we know that there's a massive demand on housing in Portsmouth, and that's leading to a rise in HMOs, the houses of multiple occupancy. Are these an essential solution to a problem that can't be avoided, or are they an unnecessary drain on parking and the cohesion and the services in the ward? So what's your position on HMOs? Good or bad thing? And if bad, do you have an alternative approach? So long question, if I can ask that first, to Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you. A difficult question. If you go to London, they're all HMOs. That's how people live in London under HMOs. And they have a public transport system that suits that way of living. Unfortunately, Portsmouth doesn't. So I'm sort of, I think this is a good question, but a very difficult one, because people have to have affordable places to live. And HMOs are sometimes the only outlet they have. But we need a different relationship with in regards to HMOs. With little social housing around, it's the only way people can afford to live. However, there needs to be enforcement of standards and the of landlords who step out of line or are not a good landlord, and there are some about. Now, the council don't have any resources to enforce HMOs, and they need to look into that. Even though landlords will pay a fee for to set up a HMO, but the standards document has not been updated since September 2018, which is quite a long time ago. So there may be HMOs out there that council are not even aware of, which is whether the landlords decide not to pay that fee, because it can run into a couple of £1,000 for 5 people, 5-bed HMO. But we need to enforce the standards and make sure that those standards are high standards for HMO. We need more resources, more enforcement officers. Now, housing officers and community officers
10 seconds.
Can also integrate with HMOs to make sure they can become part of the community and bust the myths on HMOs. It's not just about parking, it's also about researching the age groups and the families who have to go into HMO for their housing needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. And so, Charlie, can I ask you your perspective, please, on the HMO dilemma?
No, I don't think they're meeting the need. The problem isn't with HMOs themselves, it's with some developers and bad applications. There are some good HMOs coming through. I think the licensing department should have more of a robust policy to ensure that if a HMO, oh, sorry, my brain's just gone, is approved, that certain license conditions are imposed and checked, as other authorities do, I believe, like Coventry. That could be a sensible way forward, but we need to build more affordable housing across the country. These issues aren't specific to Portsmouth. At the moment, myself and my partner are looking for somewhere to live, and we are worried about our futures, and the conversations that I have with other young people. It's a very scary time, and we need to nationally look at a solution for housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And so, Jason, finally, your thoughts on the HMO conundrum.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Housing HMOs, they need to be regulated properly. Currently, I don't think they are. I want to say that HMOs are an easy cop-out for not providing enough affordable housing. Cramming and forcing community live with people not of their choosing, it just almost creates modern-day sort of ghetto-like problems and all the things that go with that. Some landlords, we know, do take advantage of the housing cramming as to get as much income as their properties as they can. They should all be licensed and regularly monitored. There are HMOs without planning permission at the moment, which needs to be tightened up on. And we need to look at the impacts on communities where properties have gone from family housing to multiple occupancies. The solution, I think, is to tighten licensing policies, and the data currently held needs to be managed better.
Thank you, Jason. So I would invite any candidate wish to use their rebuttal. In which case, I'll hand to Simon.
Thank you very much. Okay, so so our next question, which I'm sure is no surprise to anybody, parking is a problem in most of the city, and that's, you know, Baffins is no different. Most streets of housing have off-road parking. Don't have off-road parking, and this causes frustrations with people trying to find somewhere to park to be able to come to and from work or education or shopping. So how can this daily frustration of finding somewhere to park be alleviated? And I'd like to ask that question first, please, to Jason.
Sorry, I had a problem with my earpiece then. RPZs, parking zones, are the obvious solution, and when they work well. But if they don't work for all residents, then they don't work all. You have garages. Obviously, not everybody does, but some have garages and don't use them as garages because they get fed up of people parking in front of their garages. So a lot of the whole problem, people's behaviour, that needs to improve. A little bit more sort of consideration when it comes to parking as well. But I think more consultation with residents before decisions on RPZs is made, because the RPZs that apply it to peak hours of the day do seem to be favoured where they. So much more consideration of the knock-on impact of enforcing a one-size-fits-all solution. Every solution I've seen so far just shifts the problem. Is no solution. It's not an easy one to sort out, but something that I do pledge to look at quite a lot.
Thank you, Jace. And the same question, please, to Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you. The thorny subject of parking, which will always come up and always come into inboxes of councillors, and quite rightly. Baffins is an area where we got a lot of streets that have got parking and garages. We've got an awful lot of streets also that don't have parking, and sort of they suffer most from the parking issue. Now, 6 months ago, I asked for a review of WL lines and bus stops that are no longer needed to free as many spaces as possible. That was turned down by the administration and didn't hear back from that. But I would push that again because it might free up some spaces because there's lots of bus stops that are redundant. I think the answer is we need to give people an alternative to joined up public transport within the city. If people can, especially in this economic times and as times are hard, I would favour a London-style bus routes across the city. So you can hop on and hop off the bus, whereas now in Baffins, the buses stop at 7 o'clock at night, which is ridiculous. However, people do need their cars now, and what we need to target is the acute areas, which are, for example, Dover Road, Folkestone Road, and the roads the other side of Tangier Road, with no garages. Encourage people to use their garage, and again enforce if people are parking across their garages to sort of free up the spaces, but to make sure that there is enforcement there. At the moment, the Baffins enforcement is traffic wardens will come out on Christmas Eve or Boxing Day night, and that's it. And people will get ticketed all the time. Parking permits, they do work, but it does push the problem across the area. And also in these economic times, I'm not sure people can afford parking permits, and that's the problem. Yes, they can afford to run a car, but that's just to get to their place of work. And if they're working outside of the city, then we could at least sort of joined up some sort of public transport or trains, but decent trains and all that sort of thing. That's the blue sky thinking on it. How you solve parking now is going to be very difficult, but there are a few changes you can do if there is a will to do a review of how we park now, and we don't. So it's watching the space. And I think also councillors of all different persuasions and colours and whatever need to get together to come up with a solution, and not just leave it to the Lib Dems, because they won't make the solution any better. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. And thanks for that. Sorry, I let you overrun a little bit because I didn't actually give you a warning. No, that's all right. I didn't give you a warning that you were kind of coming close to time, but you only went over, I think, by about 10 seconds. So thank you, Jeanette. And the same question, please, to Charlie.
So I've campaigned for a citywide parking referendum. I don't believe the current piecemeal approach, where it just shifts the problem from one area to another with displacement, where they're parking in the neighbouring roads to avoid the charges. We are an island city and there are too many cars. And honestly, I don't think there's an easy solution. in the past, various administrations running the council had tried to get large employers and businesses to do some sort of car share schemes. None of the solutions are perfect, and none have seemed to work well. Some people have said to us that they'd like to see a carpool club that you can sign up for and hire when needed. Schemes like this have worked well in bigger cities, and maybe there's scope for that here in Portsmouth. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Charlie. Would anybody like to make use of their 60-second rebuttal with that question, please? Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Ian.
Yeah, and I think a couple of you touched on it already. The subject of antisocial behaviour comes up amongst many residents as a concern. What do you see as the root cause of antisocial behaviour, and what more do you think needs to be done to tackle it? And can I ask that question first to Jeanette, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to be quite novel with this question because I'm not sure we know what the answers are, because we never ask young people at all. We never go and consult with them and ask them what their issues are. And we think as counsellors who, most of them are either retired or in their 50s, think we know what they want, and actually we don't. So my guess, and it is a guess, is the lack of prospects. They feel that, what's the point on certain things? Boredom. They don't feel they're actually proactive in the community. They're not part of the community, and most times not invited. So the second half of the question is, how do we sort of fix it? Well, the development in Moneyfields with Pompey in the community is going to add a great deal with that. It will be open to all and will transform young people in the community. The sporting and activities between the age of 3 and 100. It will mix the communities, help with community cohesion, health, education and mental health, which I think is going to be crucial going forward in the next few years.
Thank you, Jeanette. So, Charlie, antisocial behaviour, its root cause, and how do we fix it? Over to you.
Well, I think the root causes are very complex and varied. It also seems to change from area to area too. I do know that the Police and Crime Commissioner is working hard in these areas and actually across Baffins with the neighbourhood policing team. And that's a regular sight on the streets, which is a visible deterrent and approachable. And I know they've tackled some pretty hard-hitting antisocial issues, ranging from neighbourhood intimidation to arson, theft. So I think that's the first step in tackling it. But it's too complex to even begin to go into what are the causes. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And finally, the same question to yourself, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So the root cause, I believe, is a mixture of social issues, boredom, lack of reduced policing, items to sell on to finance other things, so low or no income. But I don't think we can blanket say that all antisocial behaviour, although statistics do say that a high percentage of offenders are 18 or under. Are there enough facilities, youth centres, support groups? We need more. And I agree with Jeanette that I think we need to consult with all of those groups a lot more and find out exactly what it is that they are lacking. Certainly park areas, there are no park or adequate lighting. Certainly I know I live in Baffins, I live quite close to Milton, and the park doesn't even get light anymore. CCTV, etc., to act as a deterrent. Right to feel safe, or their property is safe at all times, whether in their homes or on the streets. And that's something that the Labour Party is committed to, everyone being able to feel safe.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Any candidates want to come back on that? In which case, Simon.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so our next question. The council, as it stands at the moment, is currently not really representative of the diversity of the people that it serves. What do you think should be done to deal with that? Do you think that parties should purposefully target that, or should they only be promoting the best person for the job? Sorry, I'm just having a problem with my technology on my end here. So I'll repeat the question. So the currently is not representative of the diversity of the people it serves. Should parties be actively trying to change this, or should it just be looking for the best, or should they just be looking for the best person for the job? And I'd like to pose that question first, please, to Charlie.
I think most political parties are active and welcoming. I know the Conservative Party is. We have some brilliant women elected here. Some of the first, so Donna Jones, the first woman council leader and the first female police and crime commissioner for our area. Penny Mordaunt was the first female defence secretary. We also have a high number of LGBT councillors and members from all different backgrounds. In the Conservative Party, we welcome all diversity. And I do think it strengthens us in life, because we understand different people's opinions, different people's perspectives. Thank you.
Okay, so the question, please, to Jason.
Personally, I'm very proud of the diversity of candidates that the Labour Party puts forward. I also believe they are put forward in the first place as the ward, but I strongly believe that the council should be representative of the people that it serves. It should be about encouraging the best, but society and the political system currently doesn't necessarily lend itself to do so. There's a reluctance for people from underrepresented groups to come forward to stand for election. But we in Portsmouth Labour Party, we've got 3 out of 7 councillors that are women, and 6 out of 14 candidates are women. Our current candidates are black or so. Yeah, I'm really proud of what we're doing towards that.
Thank you very much. And to Jeanette, please.
Yeah, thank you. As an independent, I can only sort of speak for myself, but I'm in a unique position because I was a Lib Dem and, went through the candidate procedure from there. So it really should be the best person for the job. All major parties, I think, need to do more to engage people in standing for council. It's still seen as male dominated. I know Charlie sort of said about the Conservatives, but it's still male dominated in the sort of council chamber. But it's also encouraging candidates to actually do more in their communities before they even stand for election. And because people need to know who their community champions are, and sometimes they don't. And the only time they hear of them is when they actually are on a ballot form. So if that happened, it wouldn't matter what their background was. It wouldn't matter what diversity background they have. It will be, I think people will warm to them for hardworking people of their community. And then if that happened, they would be elected, and then diversity would change on the full council. But until people start working their wards, I think that will be difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Would anybody like to make use of their 60-second rebuttal, please? Okay. Ian?
Yeah, so each ward gets an amount of money from the council infrastructure levy on new builds. I guess the question is that what would you like to see that money used on in the Baffins ward? And can I ask that first to yourself, Jeanette? Yeah,
thank you. I think first and foremost, we need to ask residents what they actually want and what would they like to see in the ward. A good example of that is recently we teamed up with Milton Ward to do a play structure for Moorings Way School that was provided by SIL from Baffins and from Milton. And that was done in partnership with the Milton councillors. And I would like to see that go towards the Copner end of the ward as well, and do the same with whichever party's in as councillors in May. Spending of SIL projects and community projects, small amounts go a long way, and sometimes I think we aim too big. We want to spend a lot of money on one project, which is probably not the ideal. If we did small amounts to small community groups, I think we'd go a long way to aid them. My own personal preference, I'm still sort of banging the drum to have street art at Baffin's Pond, and have a street artist project where they do a mural that's in other parts of the city in Southsea, for example, and have one that's done by school children and community groups to make it more welcoming, and not just the pond, but and that won't take a lot of money to do that. So again, it's about small amounts of money, but it's working in partnership with other councillors, and some councillors think it's their money, and it's not. It's for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. I then asked the same question to Charlie.
I don't know how much money is in the seal pot for Baffin's Ward, so it's hard to know how to spend it. Residents have told me, though, that they want clean streets, and that's their priority. So on that basis, perhaps more bins, more recycling points, that would possibly help with that. Everything costs money, but I think it should be focused on what the community wants, and maybe we should better consult seal purchases with the residents when looking to spend the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And finally, Jason, what would you look to spend the seal money on?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to see the community spent on more facilities for youth, such as youth centres, creative arts and drama facilities, centres for the elderly, and extensive effects that housing development has on increased traffic and parking issues before planning is agreed. We also need to learn lessons, I think, previous examples, and establish whether previous schemes have actually delivered what was promised in terms of benefiting the community.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Anybody want to come back on any of those points?
Jeanette?
Simon. Oh, sorry, Jeanette.
Jeanette just wanted to come back.
Yeah, just come out. It's not a rebuttal, really. It's just for the other sort of two candidates' information. There's over £36,000, I think, in the seal money for sort of Baffin's, but more to come because it's linked to planning, development, and buildings. So there's sort of more to come. So whereas in Cotner Ward, they don't get as much seal as Baffin's are because we've had sort of a few developments, and Milton as well with St James's. So I think that's why we need to sort of spread it out a bit. But just for your information, that's what seal money is at the moment. We're going to get bigger pot, really.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. Simon.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, so if you could change one thing about how the council operates, what one thing would you change? And I'd like to put that question first, please, to Jason.
My answer to this, quite simply, is I'd like to scrap elections every year. It prevents longer-term strategic policies. And for every year, the council is just focused on elections when their time and resources would be better spent on getting on with the job they've been elected to do. Every 4 years would have a better impact. The council has more time to actually be councillors. So that's the one thing I would change.
Thank you very much. And can I have the same question, please, to Jeanette?
Council function, I'm going to sort of limit to council meetings. So what I'd like to change is that speeches in full council need to be minded of diversity issues, and they're not always like that. And the misuse of standing orders. There's no right for any councillor to do either, and that's done on a regular basis and causes a lot of problems.
Thank you very much. And to Charlie, please.
Engage more widely with the public, and in specific areas like Baffin's, people have raised issues like poor consultation and notification on planning issues that affect them, or processes being too complicated, or things like planning portal not working properly. I suspect there's a whole range of other things that we could put forward, but it'll only really become known when I'm elected and I can see the council from the inside. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Would anybody like to make use of their rebuttal, please? On that one? No, that's okay. Ian, was
In
there
which
an
case,
extra?
as we've made such excellent time, we've had a bonus question submitted in the comments, and thank you to everybody who's commented. It's lovely to see so many people getting engaged. So the question is for each candidate is, what is your position on e-scooters? Are they a good or a bad thing for the city? And can I ask that first to Charlie?
Well, e-scooters, it appears they've got people out of their cars, so it's a new form of transport around the city, which is great for an area like Baffins, which I've had residents come at me and say that there is a need for more transport. But obviously there is a main concern with safety. The statistics are showing that they're actually quite dangerous, but there are provisions within VOI to sort of help people. I know for a fact I've been on night out, used an e-scooter, and they do check whether you've been drinking alcohol, for example. So you have to do a little game, funny enough. So there are safety provisions, and actually they have got people off cars. So I'm beginning to like them more and more and more as it goes on. That's all I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Same question yourself, Jason.
To be honest, I actually considered using one myself recently, having had a hip replacement, but then I did think twice about it. They're a good alternative form of transport. Obviously, they suit some people, but like Charlie says, the safety aspect is a big concern. I'm not sure whether you can just, at a certain age, whatever, just get on one and just get on the road without any kind of, sort of license of any other kind of vehicle. So no experience or knowledge, you can just get on a scooter and go, Also, not wearing anything, I think it all looked more sort of intensely, really. I think sometimes it's just a big accident waiting to happen. You in the city already. So yeah, I can see the benefits, but I can also see the pitfalls. But I think like anything like that is it needs to be regulated and monitored and controlled, really. Certain areas of the city would probably work better than in other. But on the whole, I've got kind of mixed views on it, really. I think when they work well. When they don't, dangerous.
Thank you, Jason. And final thoughts on e-scooters from yourself, Jeanette?
Yeah, thank you. I think they're a good thing, and I think the voice scheme has been overall quite successful because it is regulated, and there are quite a lot of tests before you actually sort of get on a scooter. But I think that there is a problem with the unregulated scooters and people in private hands that are causing a great deal of problem, and they're being ridden erratically. We've had at least one death on a private e-scooter, which is very sad. And we need to tackle that issue of the private e-scooters. VOI, I think, is the way to go. And I would like to see all the e-scooters be under sort of VOI. It has got people out of cars. I mostly see younger people using them, probably for a reason, because, I think if I got on a VOI scooter, I'll probably fall off. But it's making sure that regulation carries on and people learn about the safety. And there is a portable helmet they can also have for VOI as well, which folds up. So they are more mindful of the safety issues. But it's the private e-scooters that I have a real concern with. And they're just driven erratically. And the more complaints I have are about private e-scooters than VOI.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Anybody like to use their rebuttal?
No, everybody's good on that one.
Marvellous. Well, that brings us to the end of our questions. So thank you all for going for that. It's now a chance for the closing address. And first off, Simon, on behalf of Paul.
Thank you very much. So, this is Paul Oakley-Cleef's statement. I will keep my closing statement short. I truly believe that the local council should be run by a locally focused party. We don't need a national party representing us in council. National party politics in local councils creates divides between groups and complexities that don't need to exist. If Portsmouth Council was run solely by independent councillors, then our city would be a much better place to live in, and the council would be run more effectively. This doesn't mean to say that there aren't currently good councillors within our council. There are many fantastic ones, but even those currently elected councillors will be more effective for their communities if they were truly independent from national party policies. And sorry, I'm just waiting for my screen to update. Sorry, beg your pardon. I believe it is clear that this year in Baffins and Moorings Way, there are only two possible outcomes: a Liberal Democrat winner or myself for the Portsmouth Independence Party. If you usually vote Conservative or Labour, then please consider voting for me this year, as I'm the only candidate able to beat the Liberal Democrats this year. Whichever way you choose to vote, the important thing is you do vote. Most countries around the world don't make free and open elections, so please use this opportunity to get out and have your say on how you want your local council run. Best of luck to all the candidates across all wards in the city, and thank you to Simon and Ian for hosting these hustings. And that's a closing statement from Paul Oakley-Cleef, the Portsmouth Independence Party candidate.
Thank you, Simon, on behalf of Paul. So can I now invite the closing address from Charlie, please?
I'd just like to begin by saying thank you very much for having me on, so I could put across my views to the people of Baffins. I'm standing to be a representative of you, so your priorities are my priorities, and I look forward to working forward and helping you as much as I can in the future. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you, Charlie. And your closing address, please, Jason.
Thank you, Ian. Yes, I'd just like to sort of repeat what I said before, which I've heard many times: change is needed, and that trust is needed. And I think I can bring that to Baffins as a councillor. I think Baffins needs a Labour councillor, and the North as a whole needs more Labour councillors to give a fairer representation of the ward. I would urge everyone to vote for who they want to vote for, not to do a protest vote or anything like that, because at the end of the day, if you want somebody to be your councillor, you need to vote for them. If you vote for me, I'll be extremely grateful, and I will do everything I can to help everybody that I can in the ward. Thursday, the 5th of May, I pledge to be your voice on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And finally, your closing address, please, Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, I would like to carry on for a further 4 years with my main objectives and a voice for Baffins Ward. And the main objectives are transparency and accountability, support for community groups, protection of the environment, and community decision making. Now, a vote for me on the 5th of May will be a vote for the true independent. Paul is incorrect because he's with a party, and Portsmouth Independence Party will have rules and will have a leader and will have decisions to make as a group. I don't. I can be focused completely on Baffins. I have decision making all of my own, and that's in consultation with the community about how they want me to vote within Portsmouth City Council at full council, but most of the work it will be done as a sort of a community work within Baffins Ward. If that's what you want, then please vote for me as the only true independent for Baffins, because that's what Baffins need. It doesn't need the political parties. What it needs is an independent voice, and that voice is me, and I will give the power back to the community for this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Simon.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That brings the hustings to a close. So I'd like to give our thanks to Jeanette Smith, who's standing as an independent, Jason Christopher, who's standing for Labour, and to Charlie Douglas, standing for the Conservative Party. Thank you all three of you for coming along this evening. Thank you very much to those of you that have been following along and adding your comments as we go. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us wherever you can, whether you're finding us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or whether you're listening wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, our next show will be on Thursday, where we have the hustings for Nelson, where we have the Liberal Democrat candidate Jason Fazakerley, the Labour candidate Amy Guider, the Conservative candidate Spencer Gardner, and the Green candidate Duncan Robinson.
Marvellous. And if you haven't heard enough of our voices, there is a chance you might catch myself and Simon as part of a wider piece on politics in Portsmouth on Radio Solent on Thursday. So tune in there. But this evening, you've been listening to the Pompey Politics Podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And I've been Simon Sansbury.